Welcome back to Steve and Abby English. I am Steve.
And I am Abby. And I am going to say something today that I feel a tiny bit embarrassed about.
Okay, go for it.
I use AI tools at work almost every day. ChatGPT or whatever similar tool my company uses. And almost every day, not always, but often, I feel a small amount of guilt about it.
Interesting. Can you describe the guilt a little more?
It is hard to describe. It is like a low-level discomfort. Sometimes I feel like I am cheating. Sometimes I feel like I am hiding something. And sometimes I feel like I am getting lazy and slowly becoming a worse version of myself.
Those are three very different feelings.
They are, and I have been sitting with them for a while without really examining them. Because here is the thing. I know I am not doing anything wrong. I know AI is just a tool. I know plenty of smart, talented people use these tools every day. So logically, I understand that I should not feel guilty.
But you feel it anyway.
I feel it anyway. And I started to wonder, why? What is the guilt actually about? And today, we want to take that feeling seriously. Not dismiss it, not fix it immediately, but actually look at it. Because I think what is inside the guilt is actually kind of interesting.
I think a lot of people have this feeling and have not talked about it. And we want to give it room today. Okay, let us start by separating the three kinds of guilt you described. Because I think they come from different places, and they actually have different implications.
Right. So the first one I want to call the cheating feeling.
What does that mean specifically?
It is the feeling that I am using a shortcut that other people are not using, and that I am getting credit for something I did not fully earn. Like, if my colleague spent 3 hours writing a presentation and I spent 30 minutes with AI help, and we both received the same positive feedback, something about that feels unfair.
But here is a question. Is it actually unfair?
That is the uncomfortable part. I do not think it is when I think it through. Like, using a faster tool is not cheating. A carpenter who uses a power drill is not cheating compared to one who uses a hand drill. The skill is knowing how to build the thing, not how slow you are at building it.
So the cheating feeling might not be tracking something real.
It might be a leftover instinct from school, where using outside help was actually not allowed, where the rule was your work must be only yours. And that rule made sense in school. You were being tested on your individual abilities. But work is not a test. The goal is the outcome, not the process.
And yet the feeling persists.
The feeling persists because the rule was installed so deeply. When you are 25 years old and you ask AI for help with a report, a part of your brain still says, you are not supposed to do that. That is getting help. That is not doing your own work.
Even though your boss cares about the report, not about whether you struggled to write it.
Right. The cheating feeling, I think, is mostly a legacy instinct. A rule from a context that no longer applies. It is worth noticing, but I do not think it is telling us something we should act on. Okay. The second kind of guilt is what I call the lying feeling. And this one is a little more complicated.
What is the lying feeling?
It is when I present work that AI helped with as fully my own. When someone says, "Great email," and I say, "Thank you," instead of, "Well, ChatGPT helped a lot." There is something in that moment that feels like a small dishonesty.
This is actually a real and interesting tension. Because the norms around this, what you are supposed to disclose, when, how, are not really settled yet. Different companies have different rules. Different fields have different expectations. Even the same person might have different opinions about it on different days.
And that ambiguity is part of what makes the guilt stick around. If there were a clear rule, always disclose, always, or never disclose, nobody cares, the feeling would probably go away. But we are in this messy middle period where nobody completely agrees.
So the lying feeling might be less about you doing something wrong and more about being in an unsettled time.
Which is a more compassionate way to think about it. Like, you are not a dishonest person. You are a person navigating a situation where the social rules have not been fully written yet. That is genuinely hard. Nobody has a clean answer.
And it is worth knowing that you are not alone in this. Almost everyone using these tools has had some version of this moment. The uncomfortable thank you when someone praises AI-assisted work.
Which does not make it go away. But it does make it feel less like a personal failing.
Exactly. The lying feeling is real, and it is worth thinking about your own standards for when and how you want to be transparent about AI use. But it is not a sign that you are a dishonest person. It is a sign that you are trying to figure out something genuinely difficult in real time. Okay, now we get to the third kind of guilt, and I think this one is the most important to pay attention to.
The getting lazy feeling.
Tell me more about what that one feels like.
It is different from the other two. It does not feel like I am doing something wrong to someone else. It feels like I am doing something wrong to myself. Like I am choosing the easy path when a harder path would have made me better.
Like skipping the gym.
Yes, actually exactly like that. When I skip the gym, I do not feel guilty toward anyone else. I feel guilty because I know what I could have done for myself, and I chose not to. This third kind of AI guilt feels similar. Like, I could have practiced that skill. I could have struggled through that difficult email on my own and learned something. But I took the shortcut instead.
And I think this is the guilt that is actually worth listening to.
Why this one specifically?
Because the first two, the cheating feeling and the lying feeling, are mostly about comparisons to others, about social rules, about external judgment. But the third one is coming from inside. It is about your relationship with your own growth. And that is different.
It is a signal from yourself to yourself.
Right. And the interesting thing about internal signals like this is that they are telling you something about what you value. If you feel guilty about skipping the gym, it means you value your health and your physical strength. The guilt is not pleasant, but it is pointing at something real.
So if I feel guilty about using AI because I might be getting lazy, it means I care about my skills. I care about genuinely being good at my job, not just appearing to be good.
And that is actually a really healthy thing to care about.
The guilt is annoying, but it is coming from a good place.
Exactly. The problem is not the caring. The problem is when you either ignore the guilt entirely and let the skill atrophy, or you let the guilt paralyze you and you feel bad every time you use a helpful tool.
Neither of those is useful.
Neither is useful. So, what do you do with it?
Okay, I have a way of thinking about this that has actually helped me. I started treating the guilt like a compass.
A compass. Explain what you mean.
A compass, as in, it points somewhere. It does not tell you what to do. It just shows you a direction. When I feel guilty about using AI, instead of immediately defending myself to myself, no, this is fine, stop it, or immediately agreeing with the guilt, I am terrible, I am getting lazy, I try to get curious. I ask, what does this guilt think I should be doing instead?
I like that.
And sometimes the answer is nothing. Like, when I feel the cheating guilt, I ask, what should I actually be doing instead? And the answer is usually nothing. There is no problem here. The guilt is from an old rule that does not apply, so I can let it go.
But when you feel the third kind of guilt, the getting lazy feeling,
When I feel that one and I ask, what should I be doing instead? Sometimes the answer is, actually go practice this skill. Not because AI is bad, but because this is something you want to keep being good at. And that is useful. That is the guilt doing its job.
So the compass metaphor is about not reacting to the guilt immediately, but asking what direction it is pointing.
Yes, and sometimes it is pointing at nothing real, and you can put it down. And sometimes it is pointing at something you genuinely care about, and you should follow it.
That is a really useful distinction, because a lot of people either feel the guilt and feel bad about themselves, or feel the guilt and decide to ignore it entirely. Neither of those is engaging with what the guilt is actually trying to say.
And both of those responses miss the information. The guilt is information. It is uncomfortable information, but it is information.
I want to add one more thought here, which is about the bigger picture. We are in a moment right now where almost nobody has figured out the ideal relationship with AI tools. Not at work, not at home, not in creative life. These tools appeared very fast. The conversations about how to use them well, ethically, skillfully, in a way that keeps us growing, are still happening.
Which means most people are figuring it out in real time, with incomplete information, while also just trying to do their jobs.
Exactly. And in that environment, guilt is almost inevitable. Because you are making judgment calls every day about things where there is no established right answer yet. And when you make judgment calls under uncertainty, sometimes you are going to feel like you got it wrong.
Even when you did not do anything wrong.
Right. So I think the most honest thing we can say is, this is genuinely hard. The guilt makes sense, and the goal is not to eliminate the feeling, but to get better at understanding what it is pointing at.
Some of the guilt is pointing at old rules that do not apply anymore. Let those go.
Some is pointing at real uncertainty about social norms. Those take time, and you are not uniquely responsible for solving them. Be thoughtful, but be kind to yourself.
And some is pointing at something real about your own growth and your own values. Those are worth following.
That third kind, the getting lazy guilt, I would say, take it seriously, but make conscious choices, not reactive ones. Not, I feel bad, so I am going to stop using AI. But, I want to keep developing this skill, so I am going to practice it deliberately at least sometimes.
Which brings us back to having a relationship with these tools that is intentional, not just whatever is most convenient in the moment.
Intentional. That means you are making the choice on purpose. You know what you are doing and why.
And when you feel the guilt, you know how to read it.
Okay, let us end with something simple. If you use AI at work and you have felt some version of this guilt, first of all, you are completely normal. Almost everyone in your position has felt it.
Second, try the compass approach. When the guilt shows up, instead of arguing with it or ignoring it, ask, what is this pointing at? Follow the question, not the discomfort.
And third, and this one is from me, notice that the very fact that you feel the guilt probably means you care about doing good work. People who do not care do not feel it.
The guilt might be annoying, but it might also be a sign that you have good instincts.
It might be the part of you that wants to keep growing, making sure you do not forget about it.
Listen to that part. Not always, not without question, but listen to it.
All right, that is everything for today. Thank you for listening to Steve and Abby English. If you have had this kind of AI guilt yourself, or if you think you have never felt it and you are not sure what we are talking about, we want to hear from you. Leave a comment and tell us where you land on this.
And share this with someone who you think might be carrying this feeling around without having named it yet.
We will see you in the next one.
See you then!